Hello, everybody. If it's Wednesday, it's Warhammer, and that must mean it's time for another episode of Warhammer Weekly. And this week, we are talking KO. And who am I talking with? Well, it's just going to be myself and my own little skyship. We're piloting around the mortal realms together. It's Tom. How you doing, Tom?
Hello, friends. That's right. We are going to fly.
Yeah, that's so many sky puns will be had. All the sky puns. So get ready. Get ready for much sky punning. But before we get into going top to bottom on the Kharadron, on the dwarves, okay, before we talk about them.
Warden.
Sure. Whatever you like, man. Whatever makes you happy. It can't be that bad. Before we get into them, of course, we're going to go to the news. So, Tommy, what have we got for the news this week?
I don't know. Let's talk about the Skaven first.
Yeah, sure. Let's just jump right into that. So, yes, our rumor engine today is like the least discussion interesting thing ever.
Come on, let's see some Skaven, Vince.
Sure. There you go. So that was the rumor engine today.
Looks like Skaven to me. Okay, so in the world that this is not a Skaven, and that this is not a
which it is, but go ahead.
Hold on. And it's not a new army based on Earthward and Gem.
Sure, which is, of course, the second most likely outcome, yes.
What exactly are we looking at here? If it's not, indeed, a Skaven.
Okay, so we have to imagine some crazy scenario where this isn't a Skaven tale.
Yes. Yep.
Okay. What we are looking at is a new death release.
Okay.
That is, hold on, I'll get there.
That undead Skaven?
Correct. That contains models of various races, and so this is actually a zombie.
A zombie Skaven.
Yes.
I'm gonna go with a Slaanesh release.
Okay.
And this
a lot of segmented tails like this in Slaanesh. Why not?
Yeah. Why? Yeah. Well, no tentacles. They're segmented tentacles.
Okay.
And they use Slaanesh protection.
All right, fair enough. I accept that. One of our commenters said a whip. I'll take that too. There you go. So this is a whip on some kind of shadowkin that just happens to be segmented. The dark elf killed a Skaven, took his tail, and is now using it as a whip. There you go.
Yeah, I'd be down for that.
All right.
Yeah.
We have now covered, I think, all of the other possibilities. But no, I mean, seriously, it's a Skaven tail, right? Like, I mean, this is a Skaven tail. I've painted so many of these, and that little spiky bit around the tail, I've got a couple hundred of those all over my right shoulder. So
yeah, it's true. It's a Skaven tail.
Yeah.
Thanks, GW, for giving us an easy one. We appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess after so many, we were complaining for a while that they were becoming too hard to guess because they were just like hyper zoomed in images of nothing, right? So it's just like a super zoomed in image of like a slight bottom left shoulder pad. Like, oh, what do you think this is? Who knows? Who could possibly know? I guess they got to give us a softball every so often. So
one last thing: if this is Skaven, what clan is this?
Well, Eshin traditionally had the little things, but it's not related just to Eshin. That being said, I think the more interesting discussion here is under what context are these Skaven released? Because let me explain what I mean.
Is a Shadowspire?
Well, they could be an AOS release, right? Yep. That's one possibility.
Yep.
They could be
a 40K release. Skaven
in space. They could be a Shadowspire release, right? Yeah, it could be a preview of the Shadowspire, Shadespire. It could be a preview of the Shadespire. You said it wrong, and now you made me say it wrong. Could be a preview of the Shadespire faction, which we'll cover that in a second. Or it could also be a Blood Bowl star Skaven player, right? Like the Skaven Blood Bowl team is already out there, but we don't have the Skaven star player yet.
Yeah, and they're pretty Eshin-esque. So, yeah. Yep. Okay.
So perhaps the more interesting thing to guess about is under what of those contexts is this?
This is an Eshin Shadespire. That's my call.
Okay. And you think that's under, like, even though we know Shadespire doesn't come out for months and months and months. Okay.
Yep.
Your basic argument here would be we got the death, faction that early, right?
Well,
so hence they're going to spoil the.
No, I mean,
sure.
but so Skaven is another chaos. This is a second chaos.
Okay.
But, for this to be chaos heavy, that's not unusual. And if there's anywhere that Skaven are appropriate, it's in a dungeon.
Sure, yeah, looting this place, absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you, like that. I think it's a preview of the Shadespire crew. Now, I would love it if it wasn't. I would love it if like they shocked us all and the new, like, the Skaven release were a pure Eshin release, which would just, like, that kind of a thing.
They might go far with ninja rats. They went with pirate dwarves, and it succeeded. So ninja rats could be, pirates versus ninjas. Like, we're one step away.
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. Okay, I'll say that. And the reality is, the Night Runners are horribly out of date. Those are from the 90s. They're the old monkey face Skaven still, right? There's really no gutter runners to speak of for all intents and purposes outside of, using the Blood Bowl team.
Yep.
Basically what you've got in that faction is the Vermin Lord, the Eshin Vermin Lord, who is super sweet.
Don't downplay that dude. That dude could fight. He could teleport his way into any list.
Yeah, he's pretty great. Like, don't get me wrong, Skitterleap is fantastic. But that being said, I just look, if it happened, no one would be happier than me. Mm-hmm. I would be all in on some ninja rats, okay? Mm. I would. It would get me right back into collecting some new Skaven, but I don't see it as likely. I think it's the Shadespire faction. So
yeah, it probably is.
So
okay.
Oh well. Hey, here's the flip side of that. If it is the Shadespire faction, new gutter runners, because it's supposed to be heroes, but the reality is it'll be cheaper than buying, weird old metal gutter runners, and so you can just do that. You use those plus the Blood Bowl team, and you can sort of cheat your way into an Eshin faction that isn't garbage old sculpts from the 90s and metal Skaven. So there you go.
It's true. So I'm going to jump to the Kharadron Overlords release.
Yes.
Or Kharadron, as they seem to call it on the video. No, it's the Kharadron duardin. And so I just had to do that. Sorry.
It's dwarves. Go ahead.
No, it's a duardin.
Sky dwarves.
So, dude, you're gonna stop ruining it. Okay, so they're duardin now. The KO release is dropping this Saturday. The first launch. We'll talk that, like, most of our show is going to be talking about our Kharadron, but I just want to mention, like, everything's sold out. Like, it's been a while since we had this kind of like everything must go mentality in the web store.
I think it's really good. I mean, it just shows that, like, if they do something interesting and original and different like this is, even though at the beginning, it's sort of, to me, it's a proof point of, like, people who hate are louder, right? Like, when this first came out, there was a lot of people on both sides, but I think even initially there was more love than hate, right? But what this shows is that the proof's in the pudding. They made something very unique that a lot of people really fell in love with and were willing to go in on. So there you go.
And I was an initial, like, my gut reaction was initially negative.
As we all remember.
4 weeks ago.
Right. So long ago.
And I don't know. Like, I'll talk more about it. Like, I'm all in. And I talked about that last week.
Yep.
But it's going to take some conversions for me to be all in. And so, it's taken some work for me to figure out a space where I can run these guys kind of in good conscience. That, that fits it just fits my aesthetic, like what I want to see out of the army. And so, but I'm all in. And I mean, they are some pretty remarkable models. The rules are different. It's not an army style that I play, so I could really regret this release 6 months down the road when I put it on the table and be like, this is not how I play at all.
I think that in the end, you'll have multiple options for how you play it, and I'm sure it'll be a good change of pace for you, worst case. So
I don't know. Those 5-ups are pretty painful. Anyways, we'll talk about that later. It looks like for this week, there's only going to be two pre-orders: the Thunderers and the Gunship. Interestingly enough, the Thunderers in the U.S. it's going to be 5 models for $40, so very similar to some of the Fire Slayer pricing, and for their Auric Hearthguard and the like, and then the other ones are the Gunship, which is actually coming in at $50. This isn't something that I saw. I anticipated we'd see a $60 Gunship for the smaller ship, but it's actually coming in at $50. So GW, you surprised me. Continue to pleasantly surprise me with your prices.
absolutely. I mean, it seems good to me. Like all in all, the pricing for this has been pretty reasonable. I mean,
yeah.
frankly.
So one of the other pieces of news that came out, and this is probably we won't cover in the rest of the segment, so I want to mention it now. The only really disappointment I had with what got released on the sprues is that like each special weapon only comes 1 per box. So like in all of these, like in all these forces, like everything lets you equip like 1 of 3 special weapons or whatever.
Yep.
You know, one out of 3 out of your 10 models. So like, let's say you all wanted to go all in on like the Aethermatic machine guns. If you wanted to make a box or if you want to make like a unit of 30 guys with 9 of these Aethermatic machine guns, a standard like battle line unit, you have to buy 9 boxes.
Or harvest bits or whatever.
Yeah, like or harvest bits, and I mean, but that stuff's going to be expensive. Or and like the real offensive part is like for the Thunderers, like a unit of 10 is like 200 points. You'd easily field a unit of 10. If you wanted it to be like a single weapon type for that 10, you're going to have to buy 10 boxes at $40 a pop to make your 1 unit of 10, mortar guys or whatever. That's,
everybody's going to get the bits. Nobody's buying 10 boxes to get 10 weapons and then
but that's what I'm saying. Like, but I mean, the cost of those bits are going to be astronomical in those boxes, like if they're on bit sites at all. Because like right now, if you go for if you look for like the bits for Storm Fiends, like they're just not there. Like it's not that. Yeah.
People get them, I think, generally who want them. But yes, it's definitely a Storm Fiend situation, right? We're dealing with the same thing again.
I would argue it's worse because like you have to equip 5 models, not 3.
Who only uses 3 Storm Fiends? What kind of thing are you rolling?
Okay, well, you get the idea. Or 6 Storm Fiends instead of 10. Sure. Let me say this: I can put a lot more Thunderers in my list than I can put Storm Fiends.
That I will accept.
That's 100. That's 100 Thunderers at. Or no, that's not. Sorry, math is hard. That's 50 Thunderers at 1,000 points. You can still fit an airship and a bunch of battle line in there.
Well, as has been pointed out, the conversions will be relatively easy. We're talking about guns. Let me let you know a secret. You don't need that exact gun. You need a gun that looks pretty close. And you know what bits there are a lot of in Warhammer? Guns. And if this really looks like 40K, just go find the Space Marine gun that looks like that gun and buy that bit and stick it on there and put some clocks and gears on it and crap, and you're good to go. And that's not me being negative. I mean, that's just me being 100% serious. Like, who cares?
Well, okay. I mean,
it's your model.
Well,
you get to own it.
But for the WYSIWYG, at the at tournaments and stuff like that, that's a big deal to have the right.
If a tournament organizer, when I have gone to the trouble to convert 10 guys over to guns, and all the guns look similar-ish, the TO that busts my chops on that, I'm not playing in that tournament, and happily so. Like, I will gladly walk out that door. Because no. Like, I don't know the TO.
Okay.
And if they're out there, you're a bad person. It's that easy.
Sure. Okay. So moving on, other news. The White Dwarf, the GW actually issued an apology this last week for the US delivery situation for the White Dwarf. So the Kharadron Overlords, the big White Dwarf that dropped this month, in the US, it didn't deliver. In fact, it didn't ship at all. They were informed by the shipment company that they would no longer be able to service GW's request.
Yep. And some people, I think, still haven't gotten them, even as of today. Like,
yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah. So the GW is working on resolving that. On one hand, I'm glad that I didn't buy that White Dwarf subscription that I was going to pick up at Adepticon, because that would have been awkward. But on the flip side, I'm excited to see if they can, if they get the situation resolved. I'm definitely interested in getting myself a subscription as well.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to imagine they'll get it resolved, honestly, pretty quickly. I'm sure that there's lots of people in the U.S. who are distributors who do this, who should be able to handle the volume that they're talking about here. If this is really stopping, I can't see this as being a deal breaker. So
no, I'm sure somebody else will. Like that's what I'm saying. Like I'm just hoping that they are more reliable than the last. So. Moving on, the skeletons are missing from the store. People are up in arms because the normal skeleton models, and everybody's like, is this the Death Rattle release? No, it's not.
What do you think it is? Do you think it's just literally happenstance?
No, what I think has happened is, so I noticed another pattern because I like to draw lines between dots. And the other kit, there's another kit that's out there. That is so the Carnosaur kit.
Yep.
Is also out of stock.
Yep.
Like no longer available.
He's famously in the Start Collecting box, but not.
He's in the Start Collecting box, but no longer available on the site individually. Well, that's what technically we have with skeletons. Remember, skeletons are in a Start Collecting box.
Yeah, they're in the Death Rattle box, but hold on. Go ahead. So
GW. It's very clear that they're willing to include models they're willing to include models in boxes that they don't print individually. The Bloodsecrator is a famous example of this. And I would not be surprised if they begin to move some of their old stock, so it's not taking up shelf space, moving anything that is in a Start Collecting box exclusively to Start Collecting boxes. So just so as they sell down old stock.
I don't know. It's a bridge too far for me, man. Here's what because that just the reality is they're going to block things out of sales for stuff they don't need to take off the shelf. To me, what this says is they'll just get a repack. I don't think it's any larger release. I think
it could be a repack. Sure.
Yeah, I think it's just a repack. The reason why the Carnosaur never got replaced is because there's literally no reason to buy him. He was the same price as the Start Collecting box. Should I buy just the Carnosaur for $85, or should I buy the Carnosaur and all this other crap for $85? Oh, tough decision. Like nobody buys the regular dino in that place. It's not the same deal with the regular skeleton box and the Death Rattle Start Collecting. Those were very different and very different prices. To me, I think it's a repack. You put 20 in the box and call it a day, because I think the existing was like 10 in the box, right?
Yeah, possibly.
Yeah, so I think this is just a repack. Bring up skeletons are around to stay. They're clearly part of the legions of undead for many years to come. Don't get me wrong. I think it'd be great to get some new sculpts, but it's not going to happen. I mean,
they're relatively new sculpts. All things they were like maybe a 2010 release.
That seems newer than they are, but whatever. Sure, they're not the Tomb King skeletons from 2004. So sure. But that being said, I think it's just a renumbering and a repack. It didn't make sense for them to be in 10s. Who's buying skeletons in 10s?
Sure, they're buying them in 40s.
Right.
Okay. Other news. The Shadow Elf rumors. You want to talk about those, Vince?
Yeah, I mean, we got another confirmation from Hastings this week about the Shadow Elves, right? That it is one of the upcoming and soon releases. Though we still don't have any confirmation of date or exactly what it contains and stuff like that. But Hastings, we've talked about, has been, a pretty reliable rumor monger in the past, and he brought this up again, that he had seen both. The interesting thing about his rumor was he confirmed that he has seen Shadow Elves and Skaven. Now, again, he didn't talk about what context he saw the Skaven in, right?
Yes. Yeah.
He said he had seen Skaven.
Yep.
So again, he could have just seen the Shadespire group.
Yeah.
Right?
And we didn't necessarily know that Shadespire was even coming. So if he just saw sculpts or even the digital versions of sculpts, he wouldn't know.
Right. Yep. So I mean, to me, there has to be an elf release, right? Like in 2017, we're going to get an elf release.
Certainly.
Just because we've had all these rumors around it. Besides death, it's the number one thing everybody says every time there's a release. There's clearly an underserved market of elf players out there. It's another chance to do a really interesting release and take a new or take an old faction and put a new spin on it, right?
Do you think that we're going to have a Kharadron situation where it's all new, like 100% new? Or do you think they'll go a Sylvaneth route, or they'll take a handful of kits and then come back with a number of new ones?
I feel it'll
use a Kharadron. So, like, to kind of like again draw some lines between prior years. Like last year, we had the Fire Slayers in January, and they were an all new release.
Yep.
Then we had Iron Jaws, which were like one new unit, everything else, or one old unit, everything else new.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had Sylvaneth. We had like 2 or 3 old units, and then like 4 new units, maybe 4 or 5 new boxes.
Mm-hmm.
Then we had the Frost people, the Thunder Tusks.
Still wrong, but sure, go ahead.
Yes, it doesn't matter.
We all know what you're talking about.
Yes, mixed destruction is the answer. That's all they come in, right? They come in mixed destruction.
Mixed destruction.
They were no new kits, mixed units. So you can mix up the units and do new special stuff.
Right.
And then the same thing with the Savage Orcs, no new units. And so like we haven't had any of those like mixed kits this year. We also had Flesh Eaters last year. That was like a mixed new, right?
Well, there was nothing new, but there was new builds for existing kits.
Yeah, new builds for existing kits.
It told you how to take like one of the existing kits and build a completely new unit out of it that didn't exist before.
Which is what we had with the Beast Claw as well.
Right. Yeah.
And so the question then is,
I knew you were going to get there, by the way. I'm so proud of you for eventually getting to Beast Claw.
It doesn't matter. They're big stompy monsters. There's 4 of them on the table whenever I see them.
Sure.
And then they always have goblins running around their feet.
Sure.
That's how they come. They come
as you would expect. That's the Start Collecting box, actually, strangely enough.
Yeah, I was pretty sure they just come in the box like that.
Box of 4. It's a great deal.
Yeah.
No, in my opinion, it would lean closer to Sylvaneth because I think there are things in the line that they will pull on.
So you think that they will save some of the models?
I do.
What kit? Like, so what line are they going to build off of? Do you think?
Well, if they have the sort of sea theme at all that we've seen, like if the
Corsairs.
Yeah, if the Nautilus turns out to be feeding into that, if they have any kind of oceanic theme, okay, then to me, the Corsairs get saved and the Charybdis Hydra gets saved. Like the Hydra gets, not that he's necessarily in this release, but he's coming forward by virtue of the fact he's the other half of the Charybdis. And then, maybe that's it, maybe that's not, I don't know. But that, yeah, sure. The already sea themed stuff. Oh, Mr. Fleetmaster.
And we've already seen him in the
Shadows over Hammer, Shadows under Hammer Hall.
Yeah.
The Silver Tower expansion. Yeah. So I mean, and it seems like a natural outgrowth in the same way that the Flying Dwarves were an extension of one particular element within the old sort of broader dwarven army. That is to say, like the gyrocopters combined with the sort of machine capabilities of the dwarves. Put those two things together, give it a couple thousand years. What do you get? You get massive skyships, right? So these were sea elves who lived and died on the oceans. Give them a couple thousand years of hiding from chaos. They head into the shadows beneath the waves or something like that, or the shadows in Ulugu, which could be full of oceans, by the way. I mean, I don't know what's in Ulugu. Maybe it has vast shadow seas. Well, I don't know.
I mean, let's be honest. What is normally above like seas in regions with temperature change? Fog.
Yeah, sure.
Like we've assumed that it's like just a land of fog or marshes.
But it could be all ocean under there. Yeah,
it could be all ocean, right?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So, I mean, to me, it's like, it would be the same thematic thing. Take a single story element and blow it up to sort of 11 right?
Sure.
And it would let them use the existing kits, and those are fine. I think the Charybdis is still a cool ass model. It's a great model. I think the Corsairs are great models.
Well, if that happens with High Elves and Phoenix Temple, it's going to be an expensive year for me.
Sure. I mean, I don't know. I'll tell you this: if I had my druthers, I would want to see a completely new high elf thing. Yeah. And by the way, narratively, it makes sense because we know there's some portion of Dark Elves missing under Malaria and Old Malekith in Ugubugalu somewhere, right?
What do you mean?
But like Malarian's out there, out and about, and sort of in shadow, and we know he has servants.
Yes.
Okay. But and like that's a big unknown quantity in the narrative.
Yeah.
Tyrion and Teclis and the light elves or whatever you want to say now, right? They're not as unknown. Like Tyrion was rolling around with Sigmar for most of this time, keeping most of his people safe in his ear. Like the two of them were bro-fiving back and forth as they were, keeping the mortal realm safe or whatever, until they had their little lovers tiff over Slaanesh. So, but that's a much more recent development, right?
Well, and I mean, Malarian. Let's be honest, Malarian was a part of that tiff as well. Because
sure, I'm just saying,
it was a Malarian and Tyrion that that decided to go after. Interesting. I didn't make the connection that their names are similar.
Sure.
Like, I know it sounds silly, but
did you know they also both have mothers named Martha? It's so weird. Like, you never thought about it before now, but it's true. It's Rathy's first name. So, to me, it's just what I'm saying is I would love to see a completely new take on light elves. Like, really give me something just crazy new. And that still look like light elves. I'm not saying we need to mix them with monsters or something. Like, make them look like elves. Just have a completely
right. So, but what sub-faction are you blowing that up out of?
None. Zero. That's what I'm saying.
So you're saying not do one of these things, like not what the Fire Slayers have done, not what the Iron Jaws have done, not what any of the other new factions have done.
Yes, I'm saying
every new faction we've done
has been drawn in some way from the existing. Yes. I would love to see. I think it would be something deserving. Like it can have thematic echoes or whatever, right? Like high elves are about light and magic and crap like that. You can make it a super magical force or somebody who lives out there who escaped another plane, who lived in another realm, who did. You do 100 things. I'm just saying, like, I think it would be a great end of a long wait for the light elves or whatever if they had a totally new aesthetic and sensibility and story to them that wasn't built off of any of the old stuff. Again, these would still be elves. I'm not implying that suddenly they become different.
I hate to say it. I think that's going to be Phoenix Temple fun.
I mean, okay. Which is fine. If that's how it works out, cool. But
fire, like all of those things seem to be associated.
Yeah. But, time will tell. I think we'll definitely get the Dark Elves this year, and I think they'll definitely have an oceanic theme, and I think they'll save those kits.
Yep.
They're good kits. People like them.
Corsairs, don't get me wrong. I love those Corsairs. They're beautiful models. Like, I sold all my I sold all of that faction. Like, I had 100 Corsairs and a bunch of Charybdises and a bunch of stuff. So I sold all that in my prep for the KO. But I still kept 10 or 15 of them. I'm painting these guys. I love painting those cloaks, like doing the individual scales and doing patterns in the scales. Like, it's just, it's a fun kit to paint. Okay, moving on. So the South Coast GT is this weekend in the UK, the biggest GT, biggest player base in the world for AOS for a single event.
As of right now, until next year, we're coming for you.
Yep.
Coming for you, UK.
And so that's coming. They are doing Warhammer TV is going to be broadcasting it all weekend. You can check out the games there. That'll be exciting.
I'm very interested to see how a lot of these lists play because, people have been sharing their lists and stuff.
Yep.
Obviously, we saw Ben Johnson share the 5 Bloodthirster
his 6
army that he painted in 6 days or whatever.
Ben, if you're watching, thank you for taking my advice and painting the 30 Bloodletters rather than the 15 Blood Warriors, which you initially purchased. But I still think you should have had those summonable rather than having those as your battle line. That's all I'm saying.
Sure. Bloodletters are a much easier paint job. Yes. No doubt.
Oh, they totally are. I think he realized that when he looked at all the detail.
But he did a great job. Like, I'll say, for being mostly fast right stuff. And looking at the armies, like Steve Foote has his gardening videos going out again, which are fantastic. It's not my official pick of the week, but do please, if you're not following Steve Foote on Twitter, I'll throw his Twitter down below. That's a cheeky pick of the week. He does his books. Did you see the books he prepared for his opponents? They're magazines about gardening with his Sylvaneth inside, and like articles about gardening from a Sylvaneth perspective. It's the dude just goes to 11. It's amazing. So I'll share. I'll throw his Twitter down there. It obviously Steve's a friend of the show. He's been on the show before. He does some great lead up videos, and it's really funny stuff. So yes, I'm interested to see the lists. I'm interested to see how everything performs this weekend. Should be a lot of fun to watch.
That's amazing.
Yeah, he did, like not just he did a book, a full magazine. It has. Wow. It looks like a magazine. Like inside 10 hot tips for summer on what on Sylvaneth tree spirits. It's pretty great. So anyway,
that's fantastic. Okay, and then so South Coast GT, check it out. Also, we have this weekend is an all-day Warhammer event in the Battle Standard, Connecticut. It is, we'll have the link down below. Paul Conti alerted us to this. It's a 1,500 point event. It's a 1,500. You deploy 1,000 each game. You have a 500 sideboard that you can sub in and sub out. And let me just say, like, I love that this approach is starting to catch on. Like, I love the bring 1,500 points, you deploy 1,000 each game. To me, like, sideboard. I am a huge fan of the sideboard. I think there's a lot of. I think there's so much strategy. This actually brings back into the game the original rules strategy, of like deployment and looking at what your opponent's deploying and making decisions based on that. So, anyways, yeah, that's exciting. We'll have the link below. And then another event, the Kingdom Con tourney, 2,000 point with 500 sideboard again. In April 27th to 30th. So that's coming.
I'll throw the links for all these down below. Like the Kingdom Con has a it's coming up very soon. I think there are still some spaces. Check it out. It's got it's 2,000 points again, another sideboard event. 500 point sideboard. So yeah, should be very cool. It's San Diego. So West Coast or
And then what else? And we have NashCon coming in about a month and a half. The friend of the show, David Griffith, is doing that. I think there's still spaces open for that. I dearly hope so, because Vince and I have not signed up yet.
Yeah. We're being lazy.
And then the weekend after that is the Global Coalescence event. So check out the Coalescence website, find out where those events are happening, and find one near you. Okay.
Sounds good.
There
you go. All right. Very good. I think that I think we're going to see a return to 40K after the end of KO here, which makes me sad, but I'm hopeful and interested in what's coming next. There's a lot of stuff that could be up next. So we'll be watching them rumors. It's going to be, I think, an interesting couple weeks here. But let's turn to some pick of the week. So Tom, what do you got, buddy? What's your pick of the week?
I'm gonna pimp the Warhammer TV Facebook page.
Okay.
This week. The Warhammer TV Facebook page, for some reason, they decided to do a live stream on the Facebook page to do an unlocking for the Kharadron Overlords book. So if you're not going to get enough Kharadron Overlords tonight, go check out their Facebook page. They have an hour-long show of Eddie and Rob just going over KO. Showing you pages, talking about the book, talking about combinations, and talking about the lore, talking about the background for them. We're not going to do a lot of lore tonight because we don't actually have a copy of the book. But they do a lot of that in addition to talking about war scrolls and stuff like that. So I'm going to encourage people to go check it out, and it's free. It's not like Twitch where you'd have to have a subscription to go view back episodes. So.
Nice. Yes, and we'll obviously I know that was well watched, and there were many screenshottings done. So
yes, if you go to the Behold the Kharadron Overlords, immediately after it's done, I dropped like 30 screenshots into the forum.
Yeah, you're not alone, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So my pick of the week, is hobby related.
Okay.
And so on Figure Mentors, which is a great site for various hobby related stuff. Richard Gray, who won a Slayer sword in the past and is an amazing painter, recently did his what the moth, what are they called? Death's head moths, right?
Sure.
Okay. He did a Death's Head Warhound Titan, which is a giant Titan thing, right?
Yeah.
It's like the big size of a kid thing. Now, the reason that I say that, and the reason that I'm pimping this article that he wrote on here is because he takes you step by step through his freehand process. Because on his Warhound Titan, he has just some of the most gorgeous, stupid, stunning freehand you've ever seen. Just like heart-wrenchingly beautiful freehand. And it's all of like skulls and chains and chaos symbols and crap you probably want to put on your, any model. Not just, it has nothing like none of the freehand has anything to do with 40K.
Sure.
And he takes you literally like he has video where he's going through it. He has like step-by-step shots of exactly how he blocks and builds and sort of thinks about the color and the design. And it's a really, 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 really good article on doing freehand. So I really highly recommend checking it out because I don't think I've ever seen better explanations for a lot of these cases of exactly how you build up freehand. And it's funny too, because a lot of it, you see this like stunning work of art in what he accomplishes. Like he has a skull that has a death's head moth as the eyes of the skull. You understand? Can you picture what I'm saying here?
Yep.
And it looks just so beautiful and stunning. And you're like, how I could never paint that. But then he shows you like screen by screen how he built it up. And it sort of demystifies it because he didn't just start and paint this painting. He just sketched in a bunch of stuff and then just kept sketching. Right. And just kept sketching and kept sketching and kept sketching until eventually it looked like what he wanted it to look like. So now that's not to take away from the guy's a Slayer sword winner. He's an incredible artist, but many people could follow this and you could do some cool freehand. So check it out. I get a lot of questions about freehand. So there you go.
Excellent.
All right. So that link will be down below, as will the link to the thing Tom is talking about down there. Check them out. It's there. You can't see it now, but if you're watching this in the future, it's there. Hello in the future. All right. So
you just blew somebody's mind.
All right. Exactly. Hey, Steve, thanks for watching in the future. There you go. Somebody got that. All right. So there's a lot of people who play this game named Steve. That's a surefire bet. This is a winner right there. All right.
You just blew Herner's mind.
Sure. Exactly. There you go. So let's talk about some hobby time. What are you working on, Tom?
So I'm working on a table, but I don't have pictures of it. So I'm like my board for my my Meyerguard force, my Nurgle force. I am turning my 2x2 board into a 4x4 like skirmish board. And so I am in the process of like making the other 3 sections. And so all the stuff has been measured out and cut and glued onto the board. And so now I'm going to start the long process of making the stone ridge line around the other 3 areas of foam before I begin mudding the whole thing. So it's coming along. I'm pretty content with it. So it'll be a fun, nice little skirmish, and there'll be some neat tactics because the elevation change along the edges. So I have it high enough where it'll actually cut line of sight. So it actually ends up being a really good like line of sight blocker, in addition to the buildings being down below along the trenches along the side. So I've been working on that, and then I decided to paint up another one of my models. I'm not done with him yet. I'm always hesitant to show things that I'm not done with, but then what happens is that I get done with something and then never show anyone. And so I'm just going to show one of the things that I've been working on, and this is a Chaos Lord. So I did a conversion of my Chaos Lord. Can everybody see that?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And I was somewhat inspired. I realized so I played Warhammer Online, and I never felt like I had any model that looked like one of my Warhammer Online like Realm Rank 80 chosen. And so I wanted something that I felt like was that Chaos Lord dude. I like this model. It's a great model. Tyler Mangle did a wonderful conversion using that back thingy. This is from the War Shrine kit, like the priest on the War Shrine kit. And it was very stereotypical of the high level armor in Warhammer Online. And so I saw that and I was like, oh, that's definitely a go. So I did that, and then I pulled in some other stuff. I think I went overboard on the glow effect. I'm gonna maybe tone some of it down. It's pretty strong right now, and so I don't know. We'll see. I'm gonna mess with it a little bit, and I'll figure something out that I'm more content with. But yeah, he's only been base coated. I haven't done any like detailing or anything on him yet. So, but yeah, so this is what I've been working on.
Very nice. You got to finish that guy up, Tom. Let's go, man. Come on. Jeez.
I know. I may or may not be bringing him to NashCon, assuming we get in.
Sure. So for me, I am working on another Keeper of Secrets, specifically a conversion off of the Ultraforge Pleasure Demon, which is this chick right here. She will have her wings. I have her wings separate, even though Keepers don't have wings. I don't care. The model just looks better with her wings. So whatever, she can be a demon princess too. That's fine. If she's a Keeper, she just won't fly. But yeah, and so I'm sure it's not coming through, but if you can see the colors on like the armor and the flesh, this is done with oil paints. And so I've been playing with oil paints off and on. And so I decided to try to kick it up a notch and do a lot of the model with oil paints. And so there's going to be a hobby cheating that I'm putting together off of this. So other people can play around with oil paints too. Because you should play around with oil paints. They're a lot of fun on miniatures, especially of this size. This is where they really excel. You don't generally need it on miniatures. I wouldn't use like 28 mil guys, infantry guys. I wouldn't generally do it. It's a bit small for that to work in that medium, but for something that big, it's pretty awesome. Especially the more large flat spaces you've got, the more oil paints can make your life much easier. So there we go. That's what I'm working on. So hopefully I'll hope to finish her up this weekend.
Are you going to take her to NashCon?
The All Slaanesh Force, the All Slaanesh Demon Force. Yeah, that's a winner right there. It's nothing. Nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition. Probably not, but that's okay. I still love her. I've got to have multiple greater demons for all the greater demons, right? So yeah, except anything Nurgle related. So
nice.
Very important. All right. Let's turn to the feature segment, man. Let's do it. Let's get into some KO. So the Kharadron Overlords are dropping. The Sky Dwarves, they're coming down, dropping on us from above. It's some death from above. I'm trying to think of every Sky pun I can get out right now.
Just all of them. Just get all of them out.
Right. And and obviously we've basically all the war scrolls have leaked. So we're going to look at them and evaluate them and talk about them. We're going to do a little good, bad, and ugly and kind of evaluate. Now, whenever we do these things, we try to evaluate it from multiple dimensions. Do we think they're cool models? Do we think they're a cool unit? Do we think they fit into the force? Are they competitive? So in the end, we'll be talking about these in terms of some of the points that they cost and things like that, and talking about those kind of value judgments. It's in no way a slam on a unit you love. If we say something's bad and you think it's awesome, play that awesome thing and have a great time with it. Who cares what we say? We're idiots. So there you go.
Vince is an idiot. I'm gonna push back and say I'm not an idiot.
We're both idiots. It's all right, Tom. Get on board with it. All right. So we're just two idiots on the internet. Your opinion can be fine for you. Like what you like. All right. So Tom, you got all the scrolls queued up?
I do. Like what order do you want to go in? Do you want to go in scrolls? Do you want to go in like battalions?
No, you know what? We'll do battalions afterward. You have to understand the units before we do the battalions.
Okay. Do you want to do like the actual like allegiance abilities that we have?
I think we got to start on the units.
Okay, start on the units.
Because it's going to say you can do this instead of blah, and you're going to be like, what is blah? What's the base thing? You've got to start with the units. That's the foundation upon which everything else is built.
Okay.
You don't start with the roof.
So do you want to start with the ships, or do you want to start with the heroes.
I don't care.
Okay. Cool. Well, then we're going to start with my favorite one.
Very good. While you're bringing that up, I'll say Brocknar commented that he has an order of Warcolor paints on the way. That's awesome, man. I think you'll really enjoy them. I wish I had my affiliate link before I did that video, because you can actually you can give people an affiliate link with Warcolors, and if they order it using that link, then you get some kind of kickback. I didn't have one, so whatever, but cool. I hope you enjoy it. That's just hilarious to me. And you like the Warcolor paints are awesome. I have a bunch more on the way too. So I'm excited about that. All right.
Yeah. So on to my favorite. And by favorite, it's probably the most broken thing in the book. No, not really. But I love me some Aether Chemist. Now.
All right, Tom, break them down for us. What, let run through it. We can all read the numbers.
Yes.
So you don't need to read the numbers to people.
Sure. So this is a Foote hero. He's 100 points. And the big thing that this dude's going to bring to the table is that in your hero phase, you're going to choose one of your Skyfarer units, which is not one of the ships. Those are sky vessels. So you're going to choose one of your other duardin units. And until your next hero phase, you're going to choose one of their weapons and increase the attack characteristic by 1. So if they normally get 2 swings with their Sky Pike, they will get 3 swings with their Sky Pike. Now, why this is so amazing is because they have a lot of unique weapons, and this lets you capitalize on some of those unique weapons in the mixed units to get more attacks than you normally would. And above and beyond that, as of right now, they stack according to the base rules. So right now, if you had 6 of these guys, you could increase the attacks characteristics of each model by 6. I suspect when the new rules come out, like whether they be the GHB2 or potentially a new rules update, which I didn't mention, but let me just say before we get into this.
Oh, yeah, it's a good call.
This book is missing the 4 pages of core rules in the back.
Yep.
I've had it confirmed from multiple people. And in fact, Tyler Mangle has mentioned this. Tyler Mangle has mentioned this in his review of the book, is that it's missing the 4 pages in the back of the core base rules. My only thought as to why they might include, well, there could be a couple reasons. One is just they need to get a page count underneath, a certain number. But probably more importantly, it may point to a rules update, a core rules update coming this summer. And if that is the case, that is pretty shocking. So that, which could potentially prohibit stacking of named things. Otherwise, we could see in the GHB2 stacking of same named, like prohibition of stacking same named units. Needless to say, as this stands, I think it's really powerful the way that this is currently, what this can do. Pretty ridiculously powerful.
Yeah, and as we go through, we'll reference back to this. It's not important at the moment. When you initially read it, it doesn't sound that amazing. Okay, you can add 1 attack. But, all right, it's neat. It's not bad. It's clearly good. But as we go through the other units, that's when I think you see the real...
how punchy this thing is. For 100 points, what this dude is doing, he's going to... fleets of Aether Chemists are going to do some work. That's all I'm going to say. And you'd have to kill each one. That would be the other problem. Yes, you can snipe, 1, and you're going to reduce the effectiveness, but you're going to spend your entire game sniping heroes, and not actually putting dents into any of the units that are doing damage.
I will say I think their little atmospheric isolation is also a fun little ability. To an interesting take on a defensive ability.
Yep.
In that it sort of bubbles out a reduce all your attacks by 1. The inverse of the add attacks to their own stuff. But this guy begins the long thing we're about to see of dudes who suck in melee, right? This guy is not. Oh boy! If stuff gets on him, he's dead pretty fast.
There are some base units in the game that are making this dude look bad. Volkite Berserkers are looking at this guy with sidelong glances.
Sure. Yes. This will be the first of many things where these guys are clearly not a melee force. Yes. Real quick in the comments, Charlie said, "Do you have a link on? I assume on the Warcolors thing." I do.
We will. It wouldn't let me post it in the chat.
Charlie, no, for the Warcolors affiliate thing, I think.
Okay, got it.
And yes, I'll throw that down in the description. So if anybody else is interested, you can see it. That's fine. No issue. Okay.
Okay. The Etheric Navigator. We're going to jump on. We ready?
Already, man. Do it.
Okay. So the Etheric Navigator, he's another hero, another 100-point hero. And he's going to be able to, he has some neat effects where he's going to be able to debuff your enemy movement if they are flyers by half within 18 inches, which is pretty amazing in the current meta. Because can we just talk about how, like Sail just gets screwed by this?
Well, yes and no.
Like, I mean, he has to be forward. Don't get me wrong. Like, he has to be in the mix in order for him to really like hinder somebody like Sail. Right?
Correct. Yes, he's got to be within 18 inches at the start of the movement, which is fairly limited. Like, let's assume most flying units fly 12 inches. That's not exactly true, but
no, I'm talking about sailing.
I know what you're saying.
Like
bloodletters. I get it.
And they
I know what you're saying.
18 move. Yeah,
I understand that. I totally get what you're saying. Yeah. I'm just saying, let's talk about this ability in the raw, right?
Yeah.
Let's assume most flying units fly 12 inches.
Yep.
Okay. So if I'm within 18 inches of them.
Yep.
Right. And suddenly their fly becomes 6.
Yep.
Like if I'm right at the edge.
Yep.
Yeah. If I've moved up to just like if I've just got them in range, then that unit that flies
can still get to max charge range.
And it should also be noted that I'm hitting the units. As long as I've got one guy within that range, I shut all their flying down by half, right? So if I just touch the edge of one guy's foot, I get the whole unit.
Yep.
In that event, if we're talking about a 12-inch fly guy, suddenly that's pretty strong, because then all of a sudden they only fly 6. Now they're on a boxy's charge, right? Yep. Like that's just the math.
And you're assuming that he's not behind a chaff line.
Sure.
Like, yeah.
So in that condition, in those optimal conditions, it's actually quite potent, right?
Yep.
Now, for Sail and his ability to sail people up, you know, so much farther.
Yeah.
Right. Put it in that same condition, and they're still the people he throws up there, right?
Yeah.
Still end up 9 inches away. Right?
Yeah. No, it's true. Yeah.
Which again, not the easiest charge, but that being said, there are lots of things in Chaos that do have bonuses to charge, right? That can grant bonuses to charge. If we're in Khorne and there's a Bloodstoker in the mix as well as Sail, you know, I mean,
right.
That's still a pretty darn automatic.
But I think the Bloodstoker adds 3 inches to their move characteristic, which would then get cut in half.
Fair enough. So my point is just that it's not under optimal conditions. Yes, it's pretty good, but it's pretty good about once, right?
Yeah.
And then it's just like he can't get away quick enough.
Sure.
And
yep.
You know, so like it's good. It's good. It's just not.
Let me restate what I had started with. This is a utility piece and something we haven't seen like this before. And this is an 18-inch bubble. This is not something targeted.
Yes, to me, I'll be completely honest. Are you still there?
Yeah.
Okay. I think the read the winds is, you know, an interesting ability, and obviously you only get one of them. I'm not sure under what conditions you're charging with your sky vessels. When we get to the boats, we'll see that like ramming those things into melee aren't exactly the best idea usually. But that being said, you know, getting good runs out of them could be very important, especially as we see other things that let these boats run and shoot fairly frequently.
Ironically, what you're actually going to see is that just having the navigator on the table is where the boon is. So it's actually not in any of his abilities, but in the ships themselves, they get a free movement if they can see a navigator.
Right. Yep.
So like he himself isn't where the magic is. It's that if he's on the table and the ships can see him, they get a D3 movement or a D6 if they take in one of the good engines. Right. Or one of the certain like magical items for ships.
Yes.
And then this is your only guy that can base out of the gate Dispel. That can unbind.
He's your unbinder.
He's your unbinder as well.
he's also rocking the straight 3-up, so he's decent enough. Obviously, in any kind of offense, he's just who cares.
Yep.
I think he's a common selected guy for the ability to unbind and for his general utility and what he does to the ships on the ship scrolls. Right.
Sure.
So I think this is the kind of guy you tend to see one of.
Yeah. I don't see anybody like stacking etheric navigators is what I would say.
Yep.
Let's going to jump to the Admiral. He is actually dropping this week. He is available. He's a 6 wounds, 3-up save hero. This is your general, hypothetically. So what jumped out to me the first time that I looked at him was the fact that he's sitting at 2 attacks. Like, as for melee, like that just seemed very painful.
Sure.
Like this dude, like you really don't like. I don't know how to say this. I don't know what this guy's doing.
Okay? What his point is?
Yeah, and so here's like every force that I've made so far has excluded a general period, and here's why. Because so his one ability, if the first of the fray, like he can add 1 to charge rolls if he's the first one in and for charging. I don't want to send my general in with 6 wounds charging in front of my lines for +1 to charge.
Sure, and he doesn't do that much when he gets there.
Yeah, he doesn't do that much when he gets there, okay? So, the Masters of the Skies, if he's embarked on a sky vessel, that vessel can run and shoot in the same turn. Well, that's really good. I'm going to put this dude on that vessel and just on one of the vessels and just have it run around and shoot the whole time and try to stay out of melee. Okay, like so I can see that function, but you got to remember you're investing 140 points for that to happen. Is for him to sit on a vessel and give this ship run and shoot, and it's only that ship. You get to re-roll hit and wound rolls of 1 against heroes and monsters. Okay, with my 2 attacks and 3 shots. No,
sure.
And then his command ability, which, like, let me get, like, say, like, it's neat that he has 3 different functions of command abilities. But one is he has a 12-inch Battle Shock immune bubble, which, if he gets used, that's what he's going to get used for.
Right. That's pretty great.
Yeah,
sure.
Which, like, he can make all of the very terrible company. I mean, the company's good, but in melee, they're terrible. And so once they start taking damage, like, you're going to want a lot of bodies, and he can keep them from running.
They're not exactly tough. They're going to bleed dudes.
They're going to bleed dudes. That's exactly right. Because they're like skeletons. Like if you honestly, like they're, like pound for pound, they're 5-up save skeletons that aren't regenning back dudes and are 50% more expensive than skeletons.
Sure.
And then the other one is, Skyfarer unit within 1 inch. It can make that unit a 5-up ward save for him.
Yep.
So he makes a unit take damage for him on a 5-up. That's not going to keep him alive. Nope. And then you can re-roll failed hit and wound rolls for the Admiral in the combat phase. Okay, with his 2 attacks. And so, like, I don't know what this guy's doing.
Sure.
Because he can't be on a ship and use command abilities. Like, if you are embarked, you can't use a command. You can't use any of your abilities unless they say you can use them while embarked. None of his command abilities can be used while embarked.
Right.
So, like, it seems like a big miss. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I really struggle with this guy. So, anyways, like, now I know that there
are. What's this guy run?
What's 140?
Yeah, 140.
Yeah, like this is a Harbinger of Decay cost. This is this guy is 40 more points than a Lord Celestin.
I don't know if that's true.
Isn't a Celestin a 100?
I don't know. I don't remember off the top of my head. I'm sorry, I don't have Stormcast Eternal points memorized.
Well, they're a popular army, so I figure.
Sure, I hear you.
So yeah, so I'm just not sure about this dude. What he is doing. Yes, Lord Celestins are 100 points. Cool. I don't know. He just seems really expensive for what he's doing. Okay. Moving on. We're gonna go to the named hero, Brock Grungson. Lord Magnate of the Barak Nar. Now, this dude has some meat on him. 8 wounds, 3 up save. He has a 12-inch fly. He's your only hero that can fly. There are no other heroes wearing the individual bubbles but this guy. He has a bunch of shooty. That's going to do some damage. Not a lot. His Athematic Saul, 4 attacks, 3 up, 2 up, -2 Ren, D3 damage. That's meaty. But you're going to pay 300 points for this guy. Like the other bubble guys, he can like float on ships, which is awesome. He rerolls 1s to hit and wound against heroes and monsters, which is pretty awesome. And when he charges, he has a chance of, on a 2 up of doing D3 mortal wounds. So, and then the big thing is that he can supercharge his Saul to do just a straight 3 damage on a 3 up. So like he can do some work. Like, let's be honest. He uses and then his command ability, he can let friendly units charge if they ran. So again, I don't know how much people are charging in with this force.
Well, I think as we go on, there are a couple of interesting ways you could use that ability.
Yeah. But again, this guy's 300 points. So
sure.
I mean, and there's no +1s to armor here. So if you're staying in faction, like you're never getting better than a 3 up unless you're on terrain. And if you charge, you're not getting better than a 3 up. Right. And most of the army is actually 5 up. There's a couple 4 ups, like 2 of your 3 ships are 5 ups. Yeah. So it's just,
you're not generating any mystic shields out of this army.
No, not at all.
The critical point to remember and understand, right? Yeah. That element of the dwarves has been preserved here, certainly.
But yes, that there are just no
spellcasters.
Okay.
Yep. Yes.
So this is the I actually realized that I don't have the other hero, the Endrin Master. The Endrin Master is he actually has more melee output than this guy, or not this guy, but the Admiral. He costs the same as the Admiral. The big thing about the Endrin Master is that he actually does he heals a D3 on whatever ship he is embarked on.
Yes, I've seen him thrown around lots of lists where people are talking about just like, the ship humping, like using the ships as just unsinkable gun platforms because you just hump wounds back on them so fast. Like if they don't go down in a turn, they're going to be back at full wounds so fast.
Yeah, I don't know if that's going to be the case. They can heal quickly. Don't get me wrong. Mm-hmm. I don't know that they can heal that quickly.
Well, between the Endrin, I mean, we'll see when we get to some of these abilities, but obviously between the item, the ship ability, and the Endrin Masters, you could get a considerable amount of healing. Like it's not nothing. That's what I'll say. Sure,
yeah. I'm not going to say it's nothing, but
18 wounds on the Ironclad, as we'll see, that's no small number, right?
No, it's true. It's true. So there is durability, but it's only, I would say, durability from the healing. So here we go. Let me pull this open for us real quick. I pulled it up real quick. I apologize for not pulling it down earlier.
I hate you. Now we're all just staring at a weird screen of it going away.
So the Endrin, no, I'm not going to cover this. The Endrin Master, like I said, the only thing about him is he also has that supercharge harness. His rend is 1 less, but he's doing 3 attacks, and he's doing it so he can supercharge for 3 damage on the melee.
I'm going to wait for you to fix your screen because you need to reshare. It's stuck on a little weird sleep cube right now. Like it's just your head right now. That's pretty sweet. Yeah, indeed. Yeah, I mean, he's okay. This force, somebody in the comments pointed out something about, mortal wounds. And yeah, sure. Like, especially the big hero. Most of these guys are fairly susceptible to mortal wounds, right? They're not packing a lot of defense, if any, against this stuff.
Yep. But the key is they won't be able to be targetable. And here's the big thing. They can't be targeted while they're on the ship.
Sure. If they're actually embarked, yes.
And so you need to understand that they can disembark in the hero phase, get fully buffed up by those chemists, and then move 12 in the movement and then charge. And then some of them can even zip line out 24 more inches and then charge. So there's some pretty crazy movement, and they can stay immune to all attacks while on the ship.
Right.
So you don't have to, like, it doesn't matter that they necessarily could get sniped. They're going to get one good round of combat. Like, you're not going to get away from that.
It's the old transport thing, right?
Yeah.
Like in 40K, where you that's the point of the transport. The ships are there to get, if you're going to melee with these guys, which you're not always going to do because a lot of these guys suck in melee.
Yep.
But if that ends to be your goal, then yes, you're going to be using the ships to basically keep them immune to damage while you escort them up there and then disembark them and send them out.
Yep. Yeah, I just don't know how a force like this survives the Stonehorn onslaught, like the 3 snowballs around, because that's going to drop a 440 point model every round, like each of the ships.
Sure. I mean,
and it's just going to be painful. But like, there's just no protection. Like, we'll get to that. Anyways. Okay.
Sure. I do have an answer for you, but sure.
Okay.
I actually think the answer's not that complicated, but okay.
Okay. To go first and just wound at all those.
You've got a lot of guns that have a lot of range. Yes.
Yeah.
And all you have to do is wound those snowball throwers, and they go from 6 to D6, right? I mean, now, given I know they can heal, blah, 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 I understand all of that. I know how snowball throwers work. But nonetheless, if anybody can put heat on them at range, certainly these guys stand a decent chance at it, right? Like, these dudes do have some serious ranged firepower.
Yeah. And I mean, speaking of that, so your Ironclad is your big ship. We're not going to go through all the abilities because, as you can see, it's just huge. So one of these top 3 weapons you'll select. One of these 3, you won't get all of them. In my opinion, I think the Sky Cannon is the best of the options. Vince and I have talked through this pretty robustly. A lot of people are enamored with the Skyhook for that extra D3 inches movement. But I don't know that I want to get my ships closer to people.
Yeah, I'm really not enamored of the hook in that movement. It's pulling me closer to the target I'm trying to shoot that I have said is the most critical target to kill.
Yeah.
I don't know that I want to be
closer. That's who you're shooting
to
your big guns at, right?
Right.
The things that need to die.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like in melee, this thing is kind of a joke. Like yay, it does an average of 12 4-up attacks with no rend and 1 damage. To put this in perspective, when this thing attacks, it averages in melee, it averages 3 wounds with no rend.
Yep.
That's the mathematical average.
Yep.
So
a unit of Chaos Warriors is going to outdamage you in melee.
Oh, it's not even close. I mean, that's way outside. Yeah, like a unit of any 12 random idiots, right? Like, that's the standard melee troop. Basically, it's on par with a 10-pack of the garbage melee troops in the game.
Like zombies.
Sure. Zombies probably are better because they're probably in a big enough pack. They're hitting on 3s or 2s or something. But yeah, I mean, sure. 10 unbuffed Blood Reavers.
Yes. So the key with this ship is that it can throw up a flag and gives buffs to all other ships, including +2 to the attacks of their Aether Shock carbines, which is the machine gun that's on all of them. And there's all of the ships have that, and so that's a nice attack buff. They have reroll 1s in the shooting phase, which is also awesome. They can add range to everybody's missile weapons for all the sky vessels, which is pretty awesome, 3 inches. Or reroll hits and wounds to flyers when they're attacking flyers. So again, putting some heat on those flyers. What I would point out is that they have a lot of these like responsive, like they have like kind of the getaway abilities, like something charges them and they drop a bomb and like they make it so it can't pile in or it can't do this or that. And like, that's fine. But like these things don't want to be in melee. In your hero phase, you can roll a d6 and on a 4-up, they'll heal 1 wound. So they're just really not going to heal a lot either, unless you've invested heavily in like having units inside them that heal, and they have items that heal, and so you have to really push the healing in order for it to be a significant difference. And so I want to focus on 2 things here. Somebody in the comments mentioned that a lot of these weapons have a lot of rend. Yes. Yeah. This army is a big rend army. They're not tough, but they are pretty glass cannony. The amount of neg2 rend, that's like, I think there's probably a neg2 rend on every war scroll, or almost every war scroll. Yeah, there's a lot. Some of them have neg3 rend.
these guys will saw down people in armor. Which I think is cool. Like, it's neat that that's the dimension they chose to give them. Like, these dudes are scary, especially when their guns can get on you and you can't get at them. Like, somebody mentioned something about, like Corn running across the table at him. But yeah, it's a scary thing because you got to survive the hailstorm. Now, that being said, as we've pointed out a couple times, once you get there, a lot of these things just fold up like a wet piece of paper. But that being said, it's if you got to make it. I think we should also talk about embarking and disembarking and how that works.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So the big model can carry 20 models, and you can disembark
20 Skyfarers specifically.
Skyfarers, yes, Skyfarers, or they can go up to 25 for every additional one that you load on above 20. You lose a speed of movement. The big ship has a movement of 8, so you'll go down to a movement of 3 if you overburden. There's ways that you can reduce this movement loss by half through like a magical item for the ship, and you can also do a and then you can also pile in like any of the people that wear balloons, the floating around units. None of them count against your 20 or 25 models.
They can all just get towed for free.
Yeah, so you could clown car like 100 models.
If they're all balloon people, yeah.
If they're all balloon people, you wouldn't be able to afford 100 models.
Yeah, and obviously the advantage here is that next line. When you combine that, we talked about drops, right? The idea of like one of the powers of battalions is that it reduces your drops. The other power of a battalion is obviously more magic items, but battalions reduce your drops.
Yep.
And drops is fairly important, unless it isn't. Like, that is to say, unless...
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was going to say, drops are important unless they're not. Right? Yeah. Like, if your army can't do well on drops, then you just go, screw it, who cares? I'm going to have 17 drops and whatever. You know what I mean? Like, I'll never win and I don't care. But these guys can actually be quite competitive because, as you mentioned, you could load up a unit into a boat. You could you can tugboat all of your balloon dwarves behind it. And so you can start, because it says they can start all embarked. So that's one drop. You don't need a battalion to one drop with this army. Yep.
It can actually effectively be pulled off with a big ship. Not fully effectively. Like, you're going to be at 2 drops if you don't have a battalion. But you can be at 2 or 3 drops fairly easily on this force, is what I would say. So yeah. Yep.
So let's talk about embarking, because I feel like we should go into it.
Yeah, so with all the ships that embark, which is this one and the frigate, you can load up models in if you're within 3 inches in the
movement phase.
Oh, I'm sorry. If they move to within 3 inches in the movement phase, okay, they can embark. So they don't have to start within 3 inches. They have to just be able to move to within 3 inches. So a ship could move to them, and then the unit could move to within 3.
Yes. Now, it's relevant, I think, because you've got to think, like, placement can be really important here, and the size of units can be really important here, right?
Yeah.
If you've got a ship, enemy units can really screw with this ability, right? Because you have to bring the whole unit that you are going to embark to within 3 inches of the boat. If the boat is surrounded, right, it's got to either retreat, but if it can't retreat to a place where then everybody could go to 3 inches, you know what I mean? Like, there can be lots of this weird shell game here where there's no way to actually get your people on the boat because the enemies are afoot, right?
Yep. Yeah. Yep. You just need a big enough base. That's the answer.
Sure.
A really big ship. Okay.
So it picks them up. If they can get within 3, boom, pick them up off the battlefield. They're embarked now. Okay.
Or even better, like, you do that and then you retreat out of combat with the frigate. Like, if the frigate's been charged, you pile everybody in and get everybody out.
Yeah. Again, assuming that the enemy hasn't smartly surrounded the vessel to make it so nobody can't. The enemy unit can't do that. Yes.
So, and what I will say is, like, this may end up being very valuable for saving points off the battlefield. Like, if you're down to like 1 or 2 dudes out of a unit, you can put them in a ship, and then they're immune to being attacked. So you have to bring down the entire ship, and even if you bring down the entire ship, and if, let's say that, like, you like magic, or arcane bolt, the ship, it was wounded. You take it off the table. Every model in that ship has like rolls a dice. On a 1, they're killed. On a 2 up, they're safe. So, and then you can get an item to re-roll that dice. So realistically, it's pretty easy to get a 1 in if you're going to be transporting people. It's easy to get a 1 in 36 chance of losing a model. Only 1 in 36.
Sure. I hate everything you just said about what you said because points denial is one of the worst things in the universe. But sure, I'm hoping that the scenarios are good and have nothing to do with that.
I agree, but I'm simply talking about from a competitive standpoint.
I understand.
And that could be valuable. So for disembarking, you can disembark from a ship at the beginning of a hero phase, so not movement. And when a unit disembarks, all the models have to be within 3 inches of the vessel. Any disembarking model that can't be set up in this way is slain.
It's pretty final.
If they set up and they can't be within 3, or and none are within 3 inches. Otherwise, when they disembark, the unit is slain. Or not unit, the models that can't set up in this way are slain, which is pretty terrible, but it's the cost of disembarking into combat. To answer a question from our chat, no. Anybody that is embarked on a ship cannot shoot.
Yeah, the key. I thought we were just going to handle embarking, disembarking, and go back to that. But yes, we can touch on that real quick. The key being that unless it says otherwise.
Yes, right. Like some people have abilities that let them operate or they do something while embarked. Most do not. Any of those that do things while embarked, almost all of them are heroes. The exception being the Endriggers, which heal 1 hit point per turn in the hero phase that they're embarked. Like they heal the ship 1 extra hit point per turn. But most are heroes that are going to buff the ship with their kind of like personal buffs while they are embarked.
Yeah, but otherwise, people just sit there and kind of exist off board. You basically put them off board.
Just like you can deep strike, you're kind of deep striking out of ships, and then you can basically pull yourselves back into the ship and pull yourself back off the table.
Right. You can't shoot. You can't use abilities. You can't measure from or to the unit in there. They just don't exist unless they have a specific thing on their scroll that says, while embarked, this happens.
Yep.
Period.
And then finally, units can disembark and act normally using their abilities that can be used that turn in the hero phase and for the remainder of the turn. So when you disembark in hero phase, you get your full turn.
Yep.
Everything that you could normally do, you get to still do, which is a big deal. Like I anticipated that they wouldn't gain their movement that turn. And in fact, that is not the case. They do get their movement.
Yes, they do.
And you can't, for those that are already thinking this direction, you cannot disembark and re-embark in the same turn. So you can't jump a dude off a ship, buff a bunch of units, and then jump him back on the ship. That's a no-go. You can't do it. I know you're thinking about it. You can't do it. But what you could do is, if you get a double turn, you could do that and then jump back on the ship.
Sure.
So double turns, still important. We're going to go to the smaller ship real quick, which is the frigate. The frigate, it's a 280. The prior ship, the Ironclad, was 440. This is 280. It's only
that Ironclad ain't cheap.
No, it's not.
He's Necrosphinx level points.
Yep. But you're gonna have probably 1 unless you're Ben Johnson, and then you'll have 3.
Sure.
But let me just say, 3 is only like what 12 or 1320. So that's still, you can still have a full army there. So the for the frigate, you're going to have 14 wounds. Your save gets worse. You're either going to have that great heavy sky cannon or the heavy sky hook. You're going to have the heavy sky cannon because that's the right answer. And then you get the machine guns that everybody else gets. Let me just point out, by the way, like this is the 280. This is the medium-sized ship, and it's not very offensive. So like, don't be fooled by KO ships. They're not that punchy.
Well, I mean, we're talking about a 14 wound model with a 5-up save, right? Like, look, it does have a cannon on it. Let's not kid ourselves here, right? Cannons are scary.
Sure.
I mean, come on, it's not nothing. Jeez, man. Cannons kill things. As a guy who stares down a lot of cannons every week, I assure you, cannons are scary. But that being said, yes, I do also agree with you that it's not, you know, it's exactly what I expect for 280 point models. It's also notable that this thing can still carry dudes around, which to me is
it's going to 15. And
yeah, exactly. So it's still a mobile gunship. It's got a bunch of like, you know,
the responsive things. It does a bunch of like, you know, it can kick back mortal wounds when it's charged and stuff like that. But you're not going to want this guy in combat.
Right.
One of the abilities that I love about this one. So let me like two very flavorful, like kudos to the writing team for this. So on the, not on the frigate, but on the prior one, they have a bat in the hatches ability, which I just love on the Ironclad. This is on the big ship. I'm jumping back real quick. And it's in your hero phase. You can give the order to bat in the hatches. And when they do, nobody can disembark, but you re-roll saves of 1. Disembark or embark. So nobody's in or out, but we're locking things down. Re-roll saves of 1.
Close the door.
Close the door. So the frigates have a similar ability, only theirs is all hands to the guns. And when they do that until your next hero phase, you re-roll hits of 1 in the shooting phase.
Right.
But they have their move characteristic and can't run. So this is what happens when you're locked and loaded and you're ready to do some work. And so they just they lay into folks. So yeah, and this is just a smaller version of that bigger ship. So yeah, I mean, it's pretty good.
It is pretty good, as people would say. It's
there, and there's a battalion that you can put 2 to 10 of these in.
Yeah, I mean, for me, this is the right one. I like the cost on this. I like the mix of offense and utility. Like, I like the frigate quite a bit, actually.
Do you?
I do.
I find myself actually I go one of 2 ways when I've been building lists. One is to go deep into just doing a single ship and doing the big ship.
Sure.
Or going and doing like multiple frigates.
Yeah. To me, the frigate has the right things I'm looking for without becoming such a centerpiece. And the fact that I could have a couple of these means that it's hard to target them all and bring them down, right?
Yeah.
They can kind of all be going different directions, doing different things. It gives me multiple options to tow around other balloon dwarves, like, you know, that kind of thing, and protect them. Because we'll get to them in a second. But, you know, I think it's useful to be able to have them have a place to go safely too, basically.
Agreed. So we're going to move to the smallest ship, which is the Grundstock Gun Hauler. This is a 220 point small ship, 10 wounds, 5 up save, nice 12 movement fly. The key with this ship is that it does not actually gain the ability to carry troops around. Okay, this is a gunboat, folks. Like, that's what this is doing. This is running around shooting guns. Now, notice that this guy also gets a cannon. Like, let's be honest here.
They all have cannons.
They all have cannons. 4 up.
Notably, this guy has a very different and interesting cannon, though, too, which we should talk about.
He has the drill cannon. The drill cannon, instead of being a 4 up, 2 up, he's a 4 up, 3 up. Neg 3 rend, 3 damage. If the wound roll is a 6 or more, you can pick another enemy unit within 3 inches of the target unit. That unit suffers D3 mortal wounds in addition to any damage dealt to the target unit.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I like the drill cannon on this one. I know I've repped the sky cannon hard on the last couple, but a solid 3 is only 0.5 less than your average on the sky cannon, right?
But what about that 3 up though to wound?
Sure, it's not nothing, but God, I love me some Neg 3 rend. Like, Neg 3 rend is such a nutcracker. Sure. Like, God, I love turning 3 up saves into 6 up saves. It makes my day. Like, I love it when people think they're just so protected behind their 3 up save, and then suddenly they're wearing a t-shirt. It's one of my favorite things in the world. So yeah,
there's a battalion with 3 of these.
Yeah, I mean, you know, my point is that's a scary thing when you target it all on something reasonable. The range is notable here, like that the sky cannon and drill cannon are both 18 inches as opposed to the 24. Yeah.
No, that's absolutely true. And it's something that it has to get dealt with. Like, there's, and so if you had the frigate, not the frigate, if you had the ironclad, he could increase the range by 3 inches. So he could bump these guys up to 21 inches on those attacks and 15 on their machine guns.
Yeah. These guys' flavorful ability is total garbage. I hate a head full. You can reroll runs or charges, but you can't shoot.
Yes.
Which is the main point of this thing.
Yes, like you're not charging in with this. Stop it.
Stop it. But the that being said, the escort vessel ability is solid enough because it is some amount of protection for the other ships because it can float around and be a 5-up ward save for them.
Yes. So these ships floating next to any other sky vessel becomes a 5-up ward for that other ship. So you can do like a mini wound share. Now, this is important, by the way, and this is so cheater, but whatever. This is important, by the way, for the Ziflin, because they gain a 6-up ward to all their ships. Okay. And so you can choose like the order that things activate. And so like you could take a wound, check to see if it gets its 6-up to negate the wound. If it doesn't, you can try to 5-up share it to one of these others.
And then if it does, take the 6-up on that one.
Take the 6-up on that. And if you, so in like the Grundstock, the escort, where you have 3 of these ships, like if they're floating near each other, they can wound share. Potentially they could wound share, and you could, get multiple shots at shielding wounds that way.
Right.
It's not super effective, not super efficient, but it's a possibility. Like it's an
now.
option.
What do you think of this guy at 220?
I have not found a list for him yet.
I was going to say the exact same thing.
Yeah.
To me,
I don't know what he's doing at 220. Like he's not punchy enough.
Yep.
Like you're paying for 3 attacks and 3 attacks. One of those being a 12-inch ranged attack.
Right.
Like I would rather have 6. I would rather have 6 engine masters at 240 or 20 company. The base infantry.
We're going to get to the infantry in a moment, but you nailed my thoughts exactly. This guy loses to the actual troops.
Yeah, because he's not punchy enough. Like he's not doing enough for his points. Because the actual troops are going to get, like, for 20 points more, are going to get 10 more wounds, and better ranged attacks.
Right.
Like, let's be honest, and we'll cover those here in a minute. But an actual unit itself ends up getting better range attacks than this, even with the mixed unit.
Yep. And the problem with the escort vessel thing is he's not cheap enough to be so throwaway that I can just, nor is that ability good enough, only triggering on a 5-up.
So what would have been an appropriate point value for this guy, if not 220?
I mean, like, I don't know what he does at 220. I feel like I would have liked to see him probably weakened in some other way that I don't know and be down somewhere at the 160 range, but he would have to get significantly weaker to hit that. I think a fair points cost for him is probably 180 or 200. I think at 220, he's just too much.
Yeah, like my big issue is at 220, it just seems like he should have more attacks.
Yes, he doesn't have the offensive power or the utility or the defensive power or the regular, just like, what is he doing?
There are battalions that stack. So there are things that you can do to like get additional attacks and stuff like that. And remember, like, you're going to go from 2 to 4 attacks with your ironclad if you trigger the flag. Like, so they're like you can increase the offense here, but man, you have to work.
And remember, the first guy we talked about cannot buff the boats. He can only buff that. Mr. Add attacks only works on skyfarers, not sky vessels.
Correct. Now let me just say, I'm going to respond to Stone Monk real quick. Stone Monk asked the question of, do the ships all have those bombs? Yes, they have bombs, but all of the bombs are responsive to being charged.
Right.
So you don't drop bombs by flying over units. You drop bombs by receiving a charge, something that you don't want to do because these guys are terrible in melee.
Now, that being said, when you are charged in melee, you are fully authorized to look at your opponent and say, "Word to your moms, I came to drop bombs." And that's perfectly okay. You can quote House of Pain to them. That is allowed. In fact, it's encouraged, as a matter of fact.
Now, and so, like that said, like as it was pointed out elsewhere, like the reality is that like dwarf cannons are at 180. So you're proposing that this 10 wounds thing with similar, like it's not actually similar attacks. Cannons get 2 attacks, don't they? 2 shots.
Cannons get multiple shots, and they have a heck of a longer range. Yes.
Yeah.
Now, I agree that their number profile is the same, like 4-2, -2 d6.
Yeah.
But to me, range and shooting twice is pretty, that's a thing. Now, I agree. Dwarven cannons can get their crew sniped off and all that kind of stuff. Like, I'm not saying it's, you know, I'm not saying it's a parallel. I'm just saying at 220, I don't buy it.
Yeah, I wish that the Aether Shot carbines would have been something like, honestly, I wish it would have been something like 2d6 attacks. Make it a random, unreliable, like weak, your 12-inch range, or like even a d6 attacks would have been better than a 2. Sure. Yeah, that's where, I don't know. That's where I would have been. Okay, so those are our ships. Let's go to some floaters. We're gonna go to my favorite first, which is the Endrin Riggers. So these guys are 120 for 3. They're 2 wounds each, and they're a 4-up save. So you are paying basically for more expensive prosecutors. 12-inch fly move. So like that's the space these guys are sitting in. Okay.
I'm with you so far, man.
So by default, everybody gets an Aethermatic Saw and a Rivet Gun. 12-inch range, shooty gun, 3 attacks, 3 up, 4 up, -1 rend, 1 damage. Let me point out that that's better than the machine gun on the gun hauler. And this is per model. So you're getting 9 of these machine gun attacks at the same range that are better than the actual gun hauler's attacks.
Okay.
By default, with these guys' their chainswords. And then for every model in the unit, for every 3 models, you can 2 of them can be equipped. 1 can be equipped with an Aethermatic Volley Gun, which is the machine gun, which is an even better machine gun that does 6 attacks at 24-inch range. And which, let me just check something real quick. That's what I thought. Aether Shot carbine, as opposed to the Aether Shot volley gun. That's embarrassing. Okay. So one of your 3, 1 is going to be default rivet gun with the saw sword. 1 is going to be the Aethermatic volley gun with the machine gun, 6 shots, 24 inches, 4 up, 4 up, -1 rend, 1 damage. And then 1 can either have a skyhook, a drill cannon, or a grapnel launcher. The skyhooks are what we've come to expect with the other skyhooks. They're going to do a 24-inch range. If they hit, nice, -2 rend, 3 damage. If they hit, they're going to draw you a d6 inches closer to that unit. Now, if you have enough Aethermatic Saws in this unit, that's not a bad deal. Like, let me just say that. Because these guys can do some work with that handsaw, and I'm going to get back to this here in a minute. So that's the skyhook. The drill cannon is the awesome drill cannon that we just talked about. They get a as good of a drill cannon as the gun hauler, and you get, they get a better one than the Endrin Riggers, get a better one than the gun hauler because theirs is 24 inches. Awesome. Yep. For almost half the points at 120.
That's my point. That's why the gun hauler just doesn't make sense. Like here, you've got that neg-3 gun, right?
And for 20 more points, you get 2 of them,
right?
And these guys can hide if you want to hide them in a ship.
Yep.
Oh, and if you are hiding them in the ship, this is the one unit that heals the sky vessels they're on.
Yep.
And on top of that, they also have an additional utility. Alternatively, they could take a grapnel launcher, and this is like one of my favorite hidden abilities. Like very few people are talking about how amazing this is. So these guys at the end of the shooting phase, the last thing you do in the shooting phase is they can shoot off their grapnel launcher. They do this. They can choose either a unit that has a wounds characteristic of 10 or more, whether it be friend or foe, or they can choose a terrain feature. They choose either of those within 24 inches. They roll a dice. On a 4-up, the grapnel finds purchase on the target, and they immediately move this unit any distance towards the target up to they can move and if they move towards an enemy, they can't move closer than 3 inches. So these guys can pop out of a ship in the hero phase, move 12 in their movement phase, shoot a bunch of guns if they have them, and then zip line to a objective within 24 inches. And with at 240 points, you can have 6 of these models and cap an objective with 5 or more models.
Assuming there's a dude who has 10 wounds on there, you're zip lining too. Yes.
Yes.
Is that what you're saying? Yeah. And
yeah.
And
well, no. You can choose a terrain piece. You don't need a unit.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, terrain feature unit. Yes.
Yeah,
absolutely.
that's
Sorry.
the thing. Is like
Sorry.
you can choose a terrain feature and zip line to it. Which
yes,
is
I'm sorry.
I
was thinking about assassination, but yes, you can zip to terrain features, which is awesome. Correct.
I'm talking about staking a terrain feature.
Yes.
Now that said, these guys in my choice are the creme de la creme of assassination units in this book.
Oh, these guys are just stone cold killers, man.
This is a fanatic unit that will actually do work. Okay, because these guys are going to pop out of a ship, and and right now in the current rule set, assuming you're not running like comp rules or assuming this doesn't get changed in the near future, you can pop out these guys in like, I don't know, 3 Aether Chemists. Or not 3. Let's do 6 of these guys. You're going to want to do 6 because you're going to want to be able to.
Let's go completely reasonable. Let's say a 6-pack of these and 2 chemists. Okay, just don't even go that crazy.
Okay, that's fine. 2 chemists, sure. So I pop out a unit of these guys and I buff the unit with 2 chemists. Okay, I'm going to have the zip line. And so I'm going to zip line during the range phase.
So let's talk about how the 6 are armed. All right. So
I would arm them all with the souls personally.
Well, okay, so right, they all, like, by default, they're armed with rivet guns and the aethermatic saws. My point simply being, I want to call that out, that's not a choice. We can just have them all armed with that. If we switch the other guns, with the default aethermatic saw. If we take any of the special guns,
we get a stupid
we lose that.
Yeah, we get a dumb attack. So you want to keep your chain swords, and here's why.
We only need, but we have to switch 1 for a grapnel launcher. So now we got 5.
You have 5 dudes, and then one of those guys is going to get an extra attack with a sword because she's your Mizzen Master.
Yes.
And so you're going to have 11 attacks base. I'm sorry, you're not going to have 11 attacks. You're going to have 6 attacks base with your chain swords.
So they pop out. They've got the rapid fire rivet guns. They move 12, right?
They move 12. Well, they're going to get buffed before they move. Sure, and so they're going to get hit with 2 Aether Chemists, which means that they're going to go from 1 attack to 3 attacks with each of their Aethermatic Saws.
Correct.
So they go to 15.
I feel like I should explain this, even though you're the one who came up with this, just because you're doing such a garbage job of explaining the steps.
Okay, go.
Keep going. All right.
Go.
All right. I'm going to steal your thunder. This is all Tom's awesome idea. Full credit to Tom. They pop, you buff them. The choice for the single weapon that you're buffing is the Aethermatic Saw, which, remember, 5 out of our 6 guys are armed with. Those 5 guys now have 3 attacks each with the Aethermatic Saw. The 6th guy didn't get this buff because he has gun butt and
he's the first to die.
Yes,
he's your
first to die.
He's your drill storm fiend.
Exactly.
Like he's the first to die.
Yep. And so then they float 12, right? Because now we've disembarked them. They now float their 12-inch move, and they're now going to disgorge their 15 regular rapid fire rivet gun shots, right? That they still have, which we have not buffed in any way, which are still a perfectly decent hail of bullets to put in the air. 15 shots, a 3-up, 4-up with some rend and 1 damage. This is what we call softening the target, right?
Sure.
Then at the end of that shooting phase, we grapnel. And what we're going to grapnel for is either a terrain piece to grab an objective, or we're going on assassination mission. That we don't come home, guys. And so
can I stop real quick? So there was another magic piece to this that we haven't mentioned, and that's your actual code that you're following. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to be doing House Thuringi, which is the or Thringe, which is the classic dwarves. They're the most duardin-esque, the stereotypical. And their ability is to choose at the beginning of the game 1d3 units to have a grudge against. And against those 1 to 3 units, you're going to re-roll all hits and wounds of 1 for the entire game.
So you choose the 3 units you want to kill the most.
You're going to choose their D3 units you want to kill the most, which is who these guys are going to assassinate.
Mm-hmm.
And then what's going to happen is that you also have a re-roll 1 dice in any phase once per game. That's the other magic thing about this combo. So that when they grapnel and they fail, which they'll do 50% of the time, if this is your key round, you re-roll that dice to give them that other shot at grappling to get this charge off.
Right. So now you've upped your grapnel chance to a 75% chance.
Yep.
So you grapnel over to that enemy who has 10
You charge them.
You charge them. Yep. Because you've grapneled to within 3 inches. And then you charge them, which should be, in the majority of cases, automatic. It's not, but in the majority it is. And 50% of the time, it works 100% of the time. So, and so now what happens? Tom, please describe. So I elect this unit to attack. What's now happening to the enemy I have attacked with this?
So it's 16 attacks.
Chainsaw wielding maniacs.
16 attacks, 3 up, reroll 1s.
Mm-hmm.
So most of your hits are going to go through.
Yep.
2, and then all of those 16, it's going to be 2 up, reroll 1s. Guess what? They're all going through.
Statistically, you hit with 14 of those attacks.
Statistically, you're going to hit with 14 with all those reroll 1s. -2 rend. So that's going to get through quite a bit of armor. And each hit's going to do a D3 damage of those 14. You are going to paste whatever they come in on. I mean, Archeon himself is going to have a 5 up. He'll save again of those 14. He's going to save a third of them. So he's going to save, let's say, 5. He's still going to take 93 wounds.
Yep.
Womp. And then you've just sacrificed 240 points to achieve that. That's it.
And the key being here, if you actually double turn, like the real like golden situation here, right, is you go at the bottom of 1, execute this maneuver, zip line in, James Bond style, chainsaw through some fools, win at top of 2, right, and then just zip line away.
Yeah, if they don't die, you can zip line back out to your ship.
Exactly.
Because you can target a wound that's 10 or more, and you can zip line back to your main ship.
Or zip line over to an objective and go take a safe objective. So now you've assassinated a unit with your chainsaw-wielding dwarven maniacs, and then zip-lined away to safety as they fly away, throwing the double guns at the whoever they just chainsawed into nothing.
Did I mention that round 2 is disembarking from the ship at this point? Your next 240 points of chainsaw-wielding maniacs come flying out.
Right.
Yeah. So to me, like, this is the magic unit. And while they're embarked, they're also healing the ships they're on. So there's just so much utility in these guys that a lot of people just haven't been talking about, especially when you're stacking multiple Aether Chemists on them. You could
Tom, what this puts me in mind of, this is a complete non sequitur, but I do feel I have to mention it.
Yeah.
You know, Tom, you and I have been playing role-playing games for many years before we got into Warhammer. And there's a great RPG that's also the worst and best RPG of all time called Rifts. And in Rifts there are juicers, and juicers have a special weapon called juicer chainsaws. And one of my favorite things is them talking about armies of chainsaw wielding maniacs cresting hills and sending enemy armies fleeing just out of the sight of an army of chainsaw wielding lunatics. That's what this is. This is how you build your army of chainsaw wielding lunatics. Yeah.
It's true. It's true. And like, you can fit as many as you have points of these guys on one ship. Let me point that out too, because they don't take up space.
Yeah, like all 18 of these could be piled into your frigate.
Yeah. So all of them in your 280 point frigate.
Yeah, and you're just sending out the 6-packs on assassination missions. Just
and they can either deal with the rest of the chainsaw wielding maniacs that have 15 12-inch range attacks that are now in their face, or the next that are coming in hot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's I love these guys.
Great.
I mentioned that there's a battalion that has 1 to 3 of these guys, in addition to having one of the ironclads. It's a wonderful battalion.
There you go.
Oh, and they have 3 heroes, so you can actually do 3 chemists if you want.
Sure. All right, what do we got next?
The wardens, which are the weaker versions of these.
The other, because the balloon dwarves build 2 different. The balloon dwarf kit builds just like Skyfires and Enlightened. Here we have Sky Wardens and Riggers.
So the Sky Wardens are the ones that you're going to build probably with the mixed shooting. They're going to have, like, you're probably going to go 2 drill cannons. You're probably going to go, like in that unit that we just entertained, you do like 2 drill cannons, 2 volley guns, and then 2 pistols. Like, they technically are the quote-unquote better meleeers, but they do have 2 attacks instead of 1, but they're at 4 up, 3 up instead of 3 up, 2 up. -1 rend instead of -2 and D3 damage. So their melee just pales in comparison, in my opinion, to the murderous chainsaw-wielding guys.
Yeah, I agree.
That is a great quote, Andrew Fairbanks. Thank you. Moving on. And so these guys, like, when they get in, they can set charges. When they, like, these guys, in my opinion, are your screeners. They're 100 points for 3. You're going to throw them out and block charges. Like, I think that's what these guys are made to do. Because what happens is that, like, when they're charged, you roll a dice for every model in a charging unit, and on a 6, that unit suffers a mortal wound. And, like, these guys are expendable. They're cheap. To me, in my opinion, you're going to throw them in front and block your ships with them. That's it, like, I think. And then when they retreat, assuming they survive whatever that charge that is, you're going to roll a dice for every enemy unit within 3 inches. On a 6, they're going to spit out another mortal.
Sure.
And so these guys, they're made to, like, just get in the way and then run away and do some shooting in the meantime. Yep. That's my take on these guys. So I don't. I have been less than enamored with the Sky Wardens, is what I would say. Let's move to some of the foot troops. We have 2 left. We have the. Let's do the.
I would like them more if they could pack 3 drill cannons in. That would sell me.
If you could pack 3.
Yeah.
No, I agree.
You can only have 1. I mean, yeah.
I realize that though the unit that is actually dropping, I do not have that scroll, which is funny.
That is funny. Do you have the regular company?
That's one thing. Like, that's the scroll that I don't have, the one that's dropping this week. So
you're hilarious. You don't have the core battle line unit.
The core battle line. So let me actually, like, hold on. I'm gonna back up. We're not gonna do that one next. We're gonna do the Thunderers next.
Okay.
Because we'll end with the only battle line unit in the book. Because there's only one, folks. Like, we're gonna dispel any myth of, like, conditional battle line units like other books have had. There is only one. You must have in a 2,000 point game 3 company units.
That's because they're Highlanders.
Because
it can be only 1.
Sure. Okay. So Thunderers. This is what happened to those dwarf Thunderers when they evolved. You're gonna get 5 for 100 points, and every single one can be armed with a different unique weapon. And as you can see, there's a lot of options. The 2 that stand out to me are the Aether Cannons and the Grundstock Mortars. Okay?
Yep.
The Grundstock Mortars are a 36-inch range, 1 attack, 4 up, 3 up, no rend, which is painful, but D3 damage. So why this is significant is that you could have 10 of these guys in, like, a frigate, pop them out, buff them up. Let's say we still have those 2 Aether Chemists. You go from 10 shots to 30 shots with that Grundstock Mortar at 4 up, 3 up, D3, and this is a 200-point unit.
Yeah, it's just a lot of dice, right? Like, if you're just looking to overwhelm the enemy, you look at the thin hordes of low save units. These guys are a great answer for that because, yes, out of the unit of 10, double buffed with a chemist, boom, that's 30 attacks, all, being pretty reasonable in this.
If you were silly, you could have 6 Aether Chemists and jump to 60 attacks. Or you could bump this unit up to 20 and jump up to 120. 120 mortar attacks.
Well, if you had 6 chemists, wouldn't they add 6 attacks? Wouldn't it
7. I'm sorry, 140. You're right.
Yeah. So if you wanted to be as absolutely stupid as you could,
if you wanted to be looked at like all the Cunninruck people do, you could do that and bring a 20 block of these with 6 chemists. Right now, there may not be stacking here, in the next 6 months, but in some events definitely don't allow same name stacking. But you could at least do that for right now. The other one that jumps out to me is the Aether Cannon, because you could pop these guys out within 12 inches. So, like, I imagine these guys being like, you fly your ships forward, you send out some death squads of like chainsaw wielding guys, and then these are the dudes that come out that maybe drop behind some infantry at the 12-inch mark, or actually they'd need to be at the 16-inch mark because they can still move 4. And then then you can Aether Chemist these guys, and they're 4 up, 2 up, -2 rend D3 damage. So those Aether Cannons are going to do some work.
Again, anything that says rend -2 is worth a look, right? Like that's
doing a D3 damage, and so you can like be very clear. You can keep these guys, 10 of these guys, completely safe, 100% in the smallest ship that can transport troops.
Right. Right.
And 10 of these guys is only 200 points. So it's not a big investment to have this little shock squad of ranged, punchers that are going to jump out and do some work.
Do you want to talk about keep your distance, because it is a pretty interesting ability?
Yeah. So the keep your distance ability is when you choose these guys to activate in combat phase, you can instead choose to retreat.
Yeah, which is pretty great. Honestly,
it's amazing.
Because there's another scroll that has this same ability, and I freaking love it. One of the skink units. And it's like I've watched that skink ability burn people so hard. Okay.
Yeah.
Because it puts your opponent into the worst choice. Like with the skinks, it's even worse because skinks are garbage troops. These guys are actually pretty good, right?
Yeah.
But in a field of multiple combats happening.
Yeah. And if you have multiple of these units on the table.
Right. What it says is that you only get to hit one of them. Right? Because I'm going to retreat the set group 2 away, right? Or whatever. It's if your opponent charged you and engages in multiple combats, or there are multiple combats going on for any reason, and your opponent's on the choice, right? Then either they choose to hit these guys first, which could be the thing they don't necessarily want to do, right? There could be other combats that are more important that they need to prioritize to weaken something else. But they won't be able to, because if they don't fight these guys, they're never going to fight these guys, because then you're just going to choose these dudes next and be like, we're out.
Yep.
So I love that retreat instead of attack ability. I think it's such a potent ability.
Yep. And so I love me some Thunderers. I love these guys. And I've been trying to figure out. So again, and I talked about this in the actual at the top of the show. The problem with these guys is they're like, if you want to do a full unit of mortars or of Aether cannons, it's going to be costly. Because if you want to do a unit of 10 of those, you have to either scrounge up the bits or fork out, the cash for them.
I understand. I just call shenanigans. Like sure. I'm looking right now. What does this Aether shot cannon look like? I'm looking it up right now.
It's a cannon, like it's a hand cannon. Like it would be a pretty close conversion for the Iron Drakes. Like I looked at the thing, and you could probably convert the Iron Drakes. Let me also point out that some of these models, there are similar style weapons on some of the other things, and so you may be able to port in other guns from other units for these dwarf units for them, and convert them over. So, anyways, it's not clear. Vince is the answer. Like I've looked, and it's not obvious. What's what? The mortar is the one with the grenade. I know that.
Yeah, I'm thinking there's plenty. There has to be 80 other guns that also look like this, and that you could scrounge from anything. That I'm saying, I'm not saying you cheap house it. I'm literally saying that look almost identical.
Sure.
Right.
Sure. Yep. And then let's see. And then finally, we're going to do the creme de la creme, the Arcanaut Company. And let me swap over. This is a long show. We're probably not going to get to a lot of other stuff.
That's all right. We've gone through the units. We'll pick a particular battalion that you like and stuff like that. I'm sure we can come back to them in the future.
Sure.
There's going to be lots of time to talk about.
Well, we don't know the full rules on the battalion, so I don't want to spend a lot of time talking about them. Because I don't want to talk about things that we don't know have the full knowledge on.
Yep.
So here's the Arcanaut Company, and so Ben Curry did he's been doing his short podcasts, his dailies all week on the Arcanauts, and one of them, yesterday's, maybe Tuesdays, was on this Arcanaut Company. So this battle line unit. It's the only battle line unit. If you're running these guys pure Kharadron Overlords, you're gonna have 3 of them. But let me just tell you, man, they are some of the most utilitous units out there. So for every 10 models, you're gonna get 3 special weapons. Okay, and the special weapon options are either the Aethermatic Volley Gun, which is the 6-shot machine gun. Theirs is only 18 inches, not the 24. They get a light skyhook, which doesn't feel light at all, at 24 inches with 1 attack, 4 up, 3 up, -2 rend, D3 damage. 24 inches. Or the sky pike, 2 inch, 2 attacks, 4 up, -2 rend, D3. If you want to try to turn these guys into a melee.
-1.
-1, I'm sorry, -1 rend. Yeah, and that's a mistake if you do that. But anyways.
Yep.
And then everybody else is otherwise going to have the privateer pistol, 2 attacks, 4 up, 1 damage at 12 inches. Okay. And then their only main ability, which is a significant one, is against heroes and monsters, this unit gets +1 to hit.
Ooh.
That's really good.
It's yes, indeed. So it sounds like such a nothing ability until we talk about how we think these guys should be utilized, right?
Right, because the right answer, by the way, for this force is almost always to do all light skyhooks.
Right. Yep.
So then you end up having between you can run blocks of 40 of these guys.
And they're 10 for how much?
They're 10 for 120. Okay, so they're the same price as the new Volkite Berserkers. They're really good for 10 for 120.
Yep.
Because really what they're doing, they're not good saves. Yeah, but they're just hiding light skyhooks. That's what all of the bodies in these units are just bodies to protect your light skyhooks.
Yes, you have a 7 wound shield on your on your 3 attacking artillery piece. Correct.
Or rather, if you're running a block of 30 of these, which is probably my chosen number, I would run, if I was running 30, I would have 9, and so that means I have a 21 wound shield.
Right.
For my nine artilleries.
Yeah, my 360 point artillery piece, right? That's what we're talking about here. Which, by the way, not that we haven't banged on this guy enough, but again, with the chemist, right?
Those 9 attacks go to 36 with this light skyhook that are hitting on 3 up, 3 up. If it's against your grudge target, rerolling 1s. We're back to that.
Yep, sure.
3 up, 3 up, rerolling 1s.
Battalion.
Yep, -2 rend. This is not a battalion. That's your racial allegiance. That's your
allegiance.
36 attacks, 3 up, reroll 1s, -2 rend, D3 damage.
You're saying 3 chemists in the mix here do this?
Yeah, 3 chemists is probably the number I would normally run.
Right.
So yeah, for 36 or 20, or instead 21. Right
now,
29, 4, 9, 3, 27.
Okay, so here's what I'll say.
Yeah.
The 2 things I want to comment on this. The first is that hero +1 to hit is so relevant when combined with the allegiance ability on the reroll, right?
Yeah.
Especially if there are heroes you want to assassinate and you elect them, right?
Yeah.
These guys to me are enemy, critical enemy component assassination. You're staring down corn, you need to take out Sail and the Bloodsecrator or something. Bang, bang, dead, right? Because if they're not out of sight, if they're not literally out of sight, these guys can pretty reasonably get in range because they can use the ships to move around, be completely protected.
Like if you were doing, let's restate that. If you're running 20 of these guys,
right?
You fly them around in an ironclad, pop them out of an ironclad, pop the buffers out at the same time, and pick off any 5 wound hero without batting an eye.
Right, because you're going to put out some number of shots between, in a 20 pack, you're putting out something between, let's say, 6 and 24 shots reasonably, right? Is what this is going to boil down to. That are all basically
3 up, reroll 1s,
reroll 1s, -2
rend, which the Sail's save becomes Zot.
Yeah, that guy is so dead. Whoever you just targeted is so dead. I'm not saying there aren't heroes in the game that could survive it. I'm saying the number of heroes in the game that can survive that kind of an assault is a short list. That is a short list.
And this is your battle line.
This is your battle line troops, yes. The joke I made to Tom was, back in the day, I used to have a buddy who played, when we played 40K in 3rd edition in the 90s, I had a buddy who played, you switched over screens, Tom. I had a buddy who played Dark Eldar, and at that time you could have Dark Lances. You probably still can. I don't know. I just haven't played 40K in a while. You could have Dark Lances, which were this ridiculously powerful laser gun in your units of just dummy dumbs on foot, your dumb little Dark Raiders. or whatever they were called, whatever the Dark Elves on foot were, and he just ran them as escort companies for lances. He didn't take any boats, he didn't take any ships. It was a very similar thing because they're piratical raiders who loaded up in ships. He didn't take any of the ships. He just took tons of these like 10 packs and used them as escorts for the laser guns, and then assassinated things with his laser guns, and had like 8-9 wound shields on his laser guns. Glad to see we're bringing back the strategy from the late 90s.
Yep. Okay. So that's where we're at. Super brutal.
Yes.
Yep. So we're at 2 hours.
Sure. I think we've reached that's a good review of the Kharadron Overlords. Yeah. Obviously, we'll touch on the allegiance abilities and the battalions and stuff in a future show.
And they've been leaked. That stuff's all going to be online coming like a lot of stuff will be available to be talked about. You'll see these units all in the app coming week. The book is going to be available on sale this week. I would encourage people to go pick it up if you can find it somewhere. It's sold out in a lot of places. But there's gonna be some hot lead that's getting spit at people when these guys drop.
Sure. I agree. All I can think with this release, obviously I'm not interested in duardin. I'm not making a dwarven force. I love the aesthetic. I think they're super cool. All I can think is, which one of the ships should I buy simply to convert into some kind of weird Skaven war piece? Like, I'm thinking I should probably buy an ironclad and turn it into a screaming bell. That just seems to make sense. I've only got 2 of them. I mean, why not have a third?
Because you'd never field screaming bell in a game ever.
I have 9 sphinxes. You're never going to field 9 sphinxes in a game. I have 8 tree men. I don't think, clearly, the idea that you would not field it in a game is not a bridge that I'm not willing to cross. So I'm all right with it.
How about you wait for whatever new Skyer creation that's being cooked up from GW, and then convert that?
It's a good call. It's a good call. It is a good call, because I like, we've got to get a Skyer release at some point, right? It's got to happen. There was something we didn't mention, but it is worth talking about, just to wrap back around, talking about things flying in the air. We've mentioned the Grotbag Scuttler fleets in the previous shows and stuff. There was another reference to Skaven in the skies in the most recent video. So, or maybe the second most recent video. I don't know. They've done a lot of videos on this. So, I am personally hopeful that we will see some other races also be I don't want to see this become like Air Wars and everybody have flying everywhere, but I would love to see a couple other races take to the skies as well. I think that'd be neat. Have some other types of ships.
Yep, totally. Hey, when you do that, give me your crew.
Sure. So Rustbelt Blacksmith said, no matter how you deface it, you're still buying dwarves. I will cut every dwarf on the sprue out, put him together, take a picture, and throw them in the trash. That's what I'll do. I won't even give them to Tom. I will literally throw them in the trash. So
don't be like that.
I'll shave the dwarven. Like, that's why I got to get the ironclad, because the frigate has the dwarf face on the front. Can't have that. I'd have to Dremel that thing right off. But the ironclad it has the regular iconography. So, all right. So there we go. Tom, any final thoughts on the KO? Are you happy overall with where they came out? You think they've got some interesting possibilities?
Yeah. There's been a lot of complaints about shooting in the meta right now. I don't think that these guys are going to help that complaint.
We just finished sitting there talking about assassinating heroes from just like, you're dead, you're dead, you're dead.
Yeah, with no response and being single drop armies. Yeah, all that. This is not going to help that complaint. And if these guys do, like, if shooting were to take some huge kick in the future, like you can only shoot the unit you're engaged with, or there's some penalty to shoot out of melee or whatever. Like, if any change were to be made, I would really be concerned about this force. Just the utility of these, because of how shooting reliant this force is.
Right.
Like, they don't, like, yes, I talked about the chainsaw wielding assassination squad, but
which is awesome.
But it's like, you can't make a melee force out of fanatics. Like, that's not what this is. You send them out to die, but that's not the core of your force.
Right.
And these guys aren't as cheap as, even though they have the same stat lines in melee as Moon Clan Grots, they're not as cheap as Moon Clan.
Yeah.
Sure. So, yeah, that's what I would say.
And that's all fair. I'm with all of that. But for right now, they've got some interesting possibilities, and I won't speculate on, changes to that kind of stuff until it would come to pass, and then whatever would come to pass comes to pass. So there you go.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Like I said, and we'll likely do another show of these guys when we have more information. Like, we don't have the book. We've only been going based on leaks and on rumors and on what's been made available through the reviews that have been done through Tyler Mangle and the other various sites that have done these reviews.
Right.
And even the video that I talked about with Warhammer TV. So a lot of this information is coming from all the sources that are out there, as well as the other sources that have anonymously leaked stuff online. So when we have more information, we'll talk about some of the sweet items, some of the sweet like, we've alluded to some of the items, alluded to the code and some of the sweet abilities. Like, their code is super flexible. It's the most flexible allegiance suite of abilities we've ever seen. And so there's a lot of neat stuff out there. There's an ability to from one of them to deploy a unit in the aether, like up in the sky, like the higher atmosphere, and then basically like drop the entire ship and everybody that's in it anywhere on the battlefield, more than 9, so they can airdrop
Truly deep
ships.
strike, yeah.
They can truly deep strike entire ships onto the battlefield. So there's a bunch of really neat stuff like that. We've run so long that we're not going to be able to cover that tonight.
That's all right. It just means we get a second run of these guys in the future. So
yep.
I think that it's cool stuff. Clearly a lot of possibilities. Yep. And with that, I think we will end our review of the Kharadron Overlords for now. But don't worry, we'll return to these stunties as there's still many more weeks of releases for them. And by that, I mean 2 full weeks of pre-orders and releases. So there's going to be more to talk about for sure.
Like we're at 2 now, and there's going to be at least a 3rd, if not a 4th.
Yeah. So lots more we'll see with them, and we'll go from there. But for all of you out there, I will say thank you very much for watching. We appreciate it. And as always, we'll see you next Wednesday.